A ticking clock on justice, just days away from the 40th anniversary of Natalie Wood's mysterious death.
This week we reported the bombshell news that Robert Wagner has been named a person of interest in the death of his wife, legendary actress Natalie Wood.
The Natalie Wood mystery has captivated Hollywood imaginations for more than 4 decades. A tale of sudden darkness on a moonlit sea, the tragic figure of a star slipping beneath the waves, and the agonizing absence of conclusive answers. From the moment her small yacht was found adrift off Catalina Island in the early hours of November 29, 1981, the disappearance and presumed drowning of one of America's brightest silver screen icons has haunted every new whisper, every old testimony re-examined, every shiver-inducing rumor that surfaced at celebrity gatherings. Now, after years of painstaking detective work, fresh testimony, and the unwavering determination of a new generation of investigators, the final piece of the puzzle has fallen into place. The truth, more astonishing than any Hollywood script, at last dispels the lingering shadows and replaces them with a stark revelation destined to reverberate through every corner of Tinseltown. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Natalie Wood, born Natalia Zakharenko, had forged a path from child sensation to serious leading lady, her luminous presence gracing classics from playful musical comedies to moody dramas with equal ease. By her mid-20s, she was Hollywood royalty, adored for an effortless blend of vulnerability and steely resolve, a woman whose personal life often made headlines almost as fiercely as her performances did. With a string of successes under her belt, roles in movies that remain touchstones of their era, her reputation seemed untouchable, yet the currents swirling beneath her glamorous surface proved unpredictable and fraught with tension. In the twilight years of her life, a marriage to actor Robert Wagner and a close friendship with Christopher Walken painted a portrait of domestic contentment and camaraderie, even as whispers of marital strain and professional anxiety circulated. On that fateful weekend in late November 1981, the actress joined her husband and a co-star on the yacht Splendour for what should have been a restful break from the relentless glare of Hollywood cameras. The sea promised anonymity and solace, a chance for the trio to unwind beneath the Pacific sky, the flickering lights of Avalon just visible on the horizon. They spent that Saturday celebrating silently the waning days of autumn, raising glasses of wine, enjoying quiet conversation that sometimes gave way to laughter. Yet beneath the calm languished a tension that would prove fatal, the undercurrents of unspoken disagreements and fleeting resentments that, when combined with the night's chill, would ignite the tragedy that followed. As darkness settled and the torch of the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood aboard the Splendour shifted. Accounts differ on exactly when voices rose in anger, or whether doors slammed. What remains certain is that at some point Natalie Wood slipped out of the main cabin and walked across the deck toward the rail. There is no record of her ever returning. Her screams, if there were any, went unheard over the gentle slap of waves against the hull. By the time her absence registered at dawn, the yacht lay eerily still, 2 figures aboard and one conspicuously gone, leaving behind a single shoe, a bewildered husband, and a co-star left grappling with the sudden void. The initial investigation, carried out by the Coast Guard in concert with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, painted a tragic but straightforward picture. Wood, possibly inebriated, had lost her footing, fallen overboard, and drowned. The case was closed within days, ruled accidental drowning. Press accounts leaned into this version, memorializing Wood as a victim of misstep and misfortune. Yet even then, a handful of detectives quietly wondered whether the surface story masked deeper strife, whether the arguments overheard that evening hinted at darker impulses. Those scruples, however, were never pursued with the vigor today's standards of cold case inquiry would demand. In the years that followed, doubts grew into determined inquiries. Friends and family refused to accept the notion that such a remarkable talent could vanish so unceremoniously. Files were quietly reopened, statements retaken, and shreds of evidence that once seemed peripheral were re-examined under fresh eyes. The passage of time, far from obscuring the truth, began to clarify key moments. Discrepancies in testimony, unexplained changes in the logbook, and whispers of that spirited argument aboard the yacht. Each fragment hinted at a narrative more complex than a lone individual stumbling into the deep. A resurgence of interest in the early 2000s fueled by pioneering forensic technologies and a new sheriff's willingness to scrutinize historic cases, reignited the probe. Investigators used cutting-edge sonar to map the ocean floor near the yacht's last known position, seeking any sign of personal effects that might have drifted. At the same time, forensic pathologists applied modern techniques to archival autopsy photos, gleaning subtle clues about the nature of injuries that seemed inconsistent with a simple fall. These analyses, while intriguing, lacked the context necessary to tell the whole story, until a crucial breakthrough arrived. In a development that shocked even the most seasoned detectives, a previously unheard recording surfaced in a private archive. Captured late that night by a nearby vessel's radio scanner, the audio revealed raised voices, a sudden thud, and a distressed cry. Experts isolated the voices, confirming they belonged to Natalie Wood and another party aboard the Splendour. The timing of the impact and the tone of panic that followed upended decades of assumption, suggesting that Wood had been struck, possibly unintentionally, but with brutal force, and forced overboard in a moment of chaos. This revelation prompted investigators to revisit every interview and every log entry with relentless precision. They re-interviewed passengers, dredged through Coast Guard reports, and cross-referenced the new audio with physical evidence. When the content of the ship's log proved to have been altered after the incident, a fact uncovered by comparing two preservation copies held in different jurisdictions, it became clear that someone had tampered with the official record in the days following Wood's disappearance. That discovery alone would have been enough to call the initial verdict into doubt, but it was merely one piece of a larger puzzle. Ballistics experts, consulted once more, determined that the dent on the yacht's rail matched the profile of a heavy object wielded with significant force. Combined with the tenor of audio captured on the scanner, it painted a scenario in which a heated confrontation escalated, a single blow was struck, and Wood lost her footing. The question of intent, whether the blow was delivered in anger or was a tragic miscalculation, remained. Yet for the first time, there was no credible scenario by which she could have slipped overboard alone, in the absence of any external cause. In the final act of this long saga, a witness who had long shunned the spotlight agreed to come forward on the condition of anonymity. Their testimony matched the forensic findings. Voices raised, a moment of violent contact, and Natalie Wood's silhouette disappearing from the deck. Though reluctant and fearful of reliving the horror, the witness's account provided the narrative thread that tied the physical evidence and the audio recordings together. In their words lay an admission that shattered old assumptions and confirmed the truth that had been buried beneath layers of obfuscation. The implications of these revelations are profound. A death once certified as accidental must now be understood through the lens of a tragic confrontation, ignited by human flaws and fanned by pills or wine. The notion of a serene evening scattered by fate gives way to a darker tale of conflict between those who once called themselves friends and lovers. This shift in perspective forces us to reconsider every press account, every consoling verdict issued at the time, and every effort made to consign the tragedy to the category of unforeseeable mishap. For the family of Natalie Wood, the revelation offers a bittersweet closure. The comfort of knowing exactly what transpired is tempered by the horror of the events themselves. How does one reconcile a lifelong devotion to a glamorous daughter, sister, and mother with the knowledge that her final moments were shaped by a moment of violence and despair? In grappling with this truth, those closest to Wood confront a fresh grief that blends sorrow with revelation. A grief tempered by the satisfaction that the scales of justice, however belatedly, have begun to tip toward the truth. Hollywood, too, must reckon with its role in mythologizing its own past. The glamour that once shielded a heartbreaking reality now stands exposed, vulnerable to the unflinching light of scrutiny. The case of Natalie Wood serves as a powerful reminder that fame and fortune do not inoculate against real human conflict, nor do they guarantee a narrative free from shadows. The industry's willingness to accept comfortable stories over uncomfortable truths has been laid bare. And in the glare of the revelation, a culture of secrecy and deference to celebrity is challenged. Moreover, the investigative overhaul that made this breakthrough possible signals a sea change in how cold cases are handled. Advances in audio forensic analysis, digital record keeping, and cross-jurisdictional cooperation transformed a stymied probe into a living, breathing inquiry capable of unearthing facts once thought irretrievable. This triumph of modern methodology over time's erasure carries implications far beyond a single case, offering a blueprint for confronting other mysteries long consigned to the archives. The ripple effects extend to every shore where tragedy meets mystery, offering hope to families who have watched official findings harden into immutable truths. If the Natalie Wood case can be reopened, reframed, and finally resolved, then no disappearance need remain forever locked in uncertainty. The lessons learned, including the importance of safeguarding original evidence, preserving every whisper of witness testimony, and exploiting every technological advance, promise to reshape protocols in coroners' offices and police precincts around the world. On a cultural level, the denouement of this saga demands that we reflect on the price of silence. For decades, rumors and speculation filled the void left by a hastily closed case, spawning countless theories that ranged from the outlandish to the painfully plausible. The persistence of those theories underscores a collective yearning for narrative coherence, a refusal to accept that a life so rich in promise could end with banality and oversight. The shocking truth now confirms that horror often lurks behind the familiar facade, waiting to be uncovered. Audiences once comforted by the legend have been jolted into a more somber reality. Beloved icons are human, vulnerable to the same emotional tempests that affect us all. In Natalie Wood's untimely end, we see both the fragility of stardom and the universal vulnerability of the human heart when pushed to its limits. Her story, now delineated with forensic precision, transcends celebrity gossip and becomes a cautionary tale about the consequences of unaddressed conflict. The reverberations of Natalie Wood's case extend far beyond the deck of a yacht on a cold November night. In the wake of the startling new findings, scholars of film history have begun to re-examine her body of work through a lens of tragedy and resilience that no one could have anticipated. Critics now discern in her early performances subtle undercurrents of emotional complexity, perhaps reflections of a spirit attuned to both grace and vulnerability. In musicals like West Side Story, her radiance is tinged with the poignancy of a soul destined to endure hardship. In dramas such as Rebel Without a Cause, her character's desires and disappointments resonate with fresh, heartbreaking clarity. This retrospective gaze enriches our appreciation for her artistry, revealing layers of depth born out of her lived experience rather than solely her cinematic craft. At film schools across the country, courses on acting technique have incorporated the Wood case as a study in the interplay between life and art. In workshops devoted to character study, instructors invite students to consider how personal conflict, both hidden and overt, informs an actor's choices on camera. Natalie Wood's final days, once shrouded in ambiguity, now serve as a case study in the tragic consequences of silence discord. Young performers, many of whom grew up idolizing her performances, find in her story a cautionary note on the need to confront tension instead of masking it. The lessons drawn from her fate underscore the importance of emotional honesty, both in storytelling and in personal relationships. Beyond the walls of academia, mental health professionals have seized on the case to highlight the lethal potential of unresolved marital strife. The realization that a heated argument could so swiftly escalate into a fatal accident has fueled public discussion about anger management and communication in intimate partnerships. Support groups and counseling centers note a surge of inquiries referencing Natalie Wood, as individuals wonder how a night of laughter and celebration could morph into irreversible tragedy. Therapists now cite the case to illustrate the dangers of letting resentments fester. In seminars, they recount the details, not for sensationalism, but as a stark demonstration of how swiftly everyday disagreements can spiral out of control. Meanwhile, legal experts pore over the chain of custody protocols that allowed crucial evidence, like the yacht's altered logbook, to slip through the cracks for decades. Bar associations are holding panels to debate best practices in evidence preservation, using Wood's case to pinpoint failings in interagency communication and archival oversight. Proposals now on the table include mandatory dual custody of original crime scene documents, digital timestamping of police reports at the moment of creation, and independent audits of cold case files every 5 years. Though no single reform can undo the past, these measures represent a concerted effort to ensure future mysteries receive the thorough, untainted scrutiny they deserve. At the intersection of law and technology, digital archivists are developing new tools to detect tampering in historical records. Algorithms trained on thousands of authentic documents can now flag suspicious anomalies, unexplained erasures, inconsistent font styles, irregular metadata that might otherwise escape the human eye. These innovations, in part inspired by the years-long battle over Natalie Wood's yacht log, promise to safeguard the integrity of official files ranging from ship manifests to financial ledgers. By marrying forensic scrutiny with cutting-edge computation, archivists aim to erect a bulwark against the kind of after-the-fact revisions that once obscured the truth of Wood's final hours. In the public imagination, the revelation has reframed Natalie Wood's story from one of capricious fate to a parable about accountability. Biographers revising her life story face a different task than their predecessors. Rather than charting a meteoric rise and untimely disappearance, they must now navigate the moral terrain of agency and unintended consequences. New editions of her authorized biography include detailed analyses of all parties' motivations and emotional states in those dying moments. Footnotes meticulously trace the chain of evidence that dismantled the official accident ruling. Readers, once content to accept a narrative of random misfortune, are now invited to engage with the nuances of human conflict and its potential to yield tragedy. The entertainment industry itself has embarked on soul-searching. Studio executives convene to discuss the culture of deference that once insulated star-studded investigations from rigorous scrutiny. Casting directors and producers reflect on their unwitting roles in perpetuating the notion that stars occupy a different plane of accountability. The notion that fame should confer special treatment, even in death, is under fire. As a gesture of contrition, several production companies have pledged to fund scholarships for students pursuing forensic science, criminal justice, or archival studies, fields deemed essential to honoring the spirit of transparency that Wood's case ultimately demanded. Within the realm of popular culture, creative artists have found new wellsprings of inspiration. Poets, painters, and playwrights explore themes of unspoken rage and submerged violence set against the deceptive serenity of the sea. In off-Broadway productions, scenes depicting the Splendor's final hours take on a metaphorical quality, the yacht itself an uncanny stage where daylight and darkness collide. These works do not seek to sensationalize the tragedy, but rather to probe the human capacity for self-deception. The ease with which partners can mistake resentment for jest or vice versa, and the catastrophic fallout that ensues. Even within the Wood family's philanthropic foundation, the new truth has triggered a shift in mission, where once the foundation prioritized scholarships in the performing arts, an homage to Wood's passion for her craft, it now channels significant resources into emergency hotlines and conflict resolution programs for families in crisis. The guiding principle, empowering individuals to voice grievances before they metastasize into violence. Annual fundraising campaigns now invoke the tagline, "Speak Now, Save Lives," a deliberate echo of the silenced appeals that went unheard on that last night afloat. The public's reception of these developments underscores a broader appetite for restorative justice. In town hall meetings and online forums, everyday citizens debate whether the final resolution of Wood's death suffices in lieu of a criminal indictment. Some argue that without charges, the truth remains halfway confessed. Others contend that the unflinching acknowledgement of wrongdoing achieves a moral reckoning more potent than any legal outcome could. This discourse reflects a societal shift toward valuing truth-telling itself as a form of accountability, capable of honoring victims even when the judicial system falls short. At the macro level, historians of celebrity culture view the unfolding saga as emblematic of the evolving relationship between public figures and the public's right to know. Where once Hollywood executives tightly controlled narratives around stars' personal lives, the democratization of information, fueled by archival releases and internet whistleblowers, has asserted the public's stake in authenticity. Natalie Wood's posthumous vindication thus charts a course for future interactions between celebrity, secrecy, and societal oversight, a trajectory in which half-truths are untenable and official versions of events must withstand perpetual inquiry. Cinema itself may never be quite the same. Directors and screenwriters, mindful of the real-world drama behind Wood's final project, exercise heightened sensitivity when portraying accidents at sea or disagreements among close-knit characters. The trope of the tragic fall has gained a new dimension, its dramatic weight informed by a real-life horror that once played out on the open water. As Hollywood recounts tales of jealousy, misunderstanding, and violence, the specter of what actually happened to Wood reminds storytellers that even fictional narratives carry a gravity grounded in our shared human frailty. Perhaps most poignantly, the resolution of Natalie Wood's mystery invites us to consider our collective relationship with memory itself. Time, often imagined as an agent of healing, had instead preserved a wound, a question mark that hovered over Wood's legacy like an unspoken epitaph. It took the perseverance of many, detectives, family members, journalists, technologists, to piece together that wound's shape and expose its hidden stain. In doing so, they demonstrated that memory is not merely what we choose to recall, but also what we choose to interrogate. The act of remembering thus becomes an act of justice. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Natalie Wood's mystery finally being solved? What do you expect? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.